please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.
Hey everyone, welcome back. It is the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I am Scott Jenstad, joined as always on Sunday nights by Jeff Erickson. Really glad to be back for another baseball season here. Hopefully a longer and more normal one than 2020. But more than anything, Jeff, been a while. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I'm super excited to get going here. I mean, it's early, and I feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're doing it. Then I look around like, I can't believe we haven't done it yet. So, because we didn't really do any off-season ones. This is it. This is our starting point.
It's funny. We talked about it in December. We're like, we'll do it in January. And all of a sudden we decided we were starting in January. So we just kind of jumped to there. But you kind of tell like on Twitter, like it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, the shift kind of went from football to like everybody's talking baseball. If you're not drafting, you're at least prepping. So you can kind of tell the fantasy world's kind of shifted from football to baseball a pretty good amount over this last few weeks. So it's I think it's good timing.
Yeah, because a lot of us have finished with magazine stuff. Although I've got some stuff that is due tonight that I'll be doing after this. But
mine is turned in. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Very good. I'm mostly turned in. Just got a couple more things to finish, but I started my first draft at a DC that Vlad was tweeting out, that our good friend Vlad Settler was tweeting out, hey, anybody want to jump in a DC? Well, okay, Clay did it, I did it. Nice. Next thing I know, there's like 9 industry people in this. I'm like, or like people I know from NFBC, maybe more. And it's just like, oh, okay. But then again, who else is drafting in January? They're all sharks.
And if you get those people, you're like, at least you're getting a pretty good feel of, what may happen coming to March. Obviously, stuff changes as the season goes along. But I think a DC with some good players is a good thing, because some of that you're working on draft prep and trying to figure out who goes where, and put yourself some questions, and you can see where positions and categories fall off a little bit. So I think a competitive DC, as long as it's not one of the major money ones, is probably a pretty good thing.
Yeah, I did the $150 one, and it's. The thing is, you can look at ADP, you can do mock drafts. It's just not the same as actually drafting and actually experiencing like those tiers. Like when you're put to the test on a decision, it makes such a difference.
Yeah.
Plus, I get excited about it. I want to talk about it. I was tweeting out picks for a while.
Yeah, you're tweeting out picks, and it turned into an entourage chain on like pick 7, so you had to restart.
Yeah, thanks for that, by the way. You're slightly, although I blame myself because I used the line, but
yeah.
It took a while for someone to jump on that line, and then when it got jumped hard.
Yeah. It was just funny, like pick 6, all of a sudden it went completely sideways. I was cracking up. So you talking about the magazine, like projections and stuff like that. This 2021 is, I think we talked about the very end of last year. It's going to be like impossible to figure stuff out. I think the hard part is, how do you evaluate 2020 in terms of, it was 60 games. And, we see in regular seasons, like there are guys who slump for 2 months and all of a sudden they end up with a pretty good line. So we don't know if, the guy maybe just slumped for those 2 months. We don't know if those results were real. Like, how are you, as you're drafting, putting projections together for the site, how are you evaluating 2020 in this weird shortened environment?
Yeah, it's a great question. And Todd Zola and I are doing a part in the magazine where we kind of did a back and forth about all the challenges this year.
Oh, nice. That's good.
Because it's insane. We don't even know if we're going to have a DH in the NL this year. We don't know when we're going to start the season.
It's crazy. It's January 24th, and we don't know when they don't have a date for spring training yet. Like right. Jake Diekman tweeted out last week. He's like, I'd like to know when I need to show up to camp. And It's crazy that players don't have any idea when they're supposed to show up.
And if they're allowed to show up. I mean, Arizona is a COVID hot zone right now. Yeah. I mean, great. And that's an issue. Like you talked about, the 60-game sample. Especially for pitchers, that's like 10 starts. In less in some cases. If a guy got hurt and missed that month of the season, that's half the season. Yep. And so Todd is actually, instead of using 3-year weighted averages, he's using 4-year weighted averages. He's including MLEs and and I'm doing that to a certain extent too. And you have to do a lot of more massaging of the data, and that runs into a little subjectivity warnings. Although maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. In some cases, if you have a feel, I mean, the whole point of having a system is to strip away your biases. Strip away, the things that, I saw this, therefore, and all that. We have our guys that we like and guys we dislike, and it's natural to kind of use that, and that's sometimes helpful because we do watch a ton of baseball. Yeah, we play a lot, we draft a lot, we write about it.
You mentioned pitchers with 10 starts. I think that's kind of the big factor in projections. How are you feeling about like innings and guys they're going to go deep, or innings limits or 6-man rotations? It seems like, there's so many pitchers that threw 45, 50, 60,
Yeah,
70 innings. And like, are they going to jump up to 200? Like, I don't know. We're going to see that many, maybe we get the DeGroms and Biebers and those guys I think, can be workhorses. And there's been a lot of stuff out there that like, some guys get hurt and they throw 30 innings and they throw 180 the next year. But I think with young guys, I mean, there's already 3 or 4 teams with rumors about 6-man rotations. How do you think that's going to play out in terms of like innings pitched this year?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And the thing is, you mentioned Bieber. Take a look at his game log. He didn't go 7 hardly at all. I mean, he because he used more pitches to get to where he was going sometimes.
You strike out 14 guys every day. That happens.
Exactly. But, it's just like, well, maybe he's less likely than DeGrom to go the 200 innings. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, that's why I put him third among the big 3. I think there is a clear big 3. I am cheating a little bit towards veterans in that I think they're more likely to get closer to 180 to 200 than a younger pitcher. But that's true every year, though, also, right? I mean, it
is.
Yeah, but yeah, I put a little extra emphasis on that. I had to make a decision in the second round in my draft champions. Like, I went Aaron Nola over like Luis Castillo because Nolan goes 180 to 200 all the time. I think there's a better chance he's going to be allowed to do that. I think that's just one of the things to kind of look at there. I think that at the same time, when push comes to shove, they're going to let the guys that shove a little bit more, especially if they're in a playoff race. Right. If we have expanded playoffs, that lessens that need a little bit. That's another thing too. That's part of it. If more teams make the playoffs again, well, maybe you won't feel that urgency to push your starters as much. Maybe you'll take that quicker hook or let more people pitch.
It just seems to me that those top end guys become even more top end than they were before. Because the middle range guys are usually guys that young guys that are coming up that we think are going to be really good, but might throw 135, 140 innings. It seems like those horses, those guys that are really going to go a lot of innings, are even more valuable than they are anyway. And it's going to be interesting in March. We always see pitching pushed up, and it feels to me like looking at DCs, it's going to be even tougher this year. I mean, it seems like it used to be like 10th, 11th, 12th, and I can still get pitchers I like. I look at ADPs now, and like everybody that I remotely like is gone by like the 8th round. It's going to be really tough to identify mid-round pitchers that we like.
Yeah, I agree. And I was listening to Zach's Draft Champions podcast when he had Mike the Mouth on, and Mike was critiquing teams, and he hated everybody in the 8th round. After all, you know what? There's a reason for that. I mean, it's because they're all getting pushed. I mean, it should mean something else is there, but I think some of this is we just don't know. Some of this also too is like, we didn't have like this influx of pitchers that made these strides in the minors, or and all of a sudden, they're on our radar, or they had a great years in the minors, so we should be looking out for them getting the call this year. We didn't have that this year, so I feel like there's less to choose from.
Yeah, it seems like rookies and that, young guys can be really tough to figure out because either A, they didn't play last year. We have no stats from the alternate sites where baby, and there's a lot of guys that got called up that wouldn't have gotten called up last year because there was no minors, and all of a sudden, Joey Bart got called up for the Giants, and I don't think he's going to start in the majors this year. I mean, it seems obvious that he got called up, he's there to stay, but I think with AAA and being minors, I think a lot of those guys that we think, Alejandro Kirk in Toronto, a lot of people were like, oh, he came up, he's ready to play. I think those guys are going to start in the minors, and I think they're going to see a bunch of those that people are going to be a little surprised that those guys start in AAA, whether it be for service time or just the fact that teams don't think they were ready and they didn't have a choice last year. They had to call him up.
Yeah, well, especially like Bart. I mean, he looked overmatched, right? Same with like Jose Garcia with the Reds. Same thing. Where the Reds need help at shortstop, but he ain't it right now. I mean, he could be eventually, but he needs that minor league time. And by the way, talk about unknowns. We don't know what sort of minor league season we're going to have either.
That's a fair point too. I mean, we know a lot of teams are gone. It sounds like what the thought was they'll have the major league guys and the AAA guys come to camp, and then when they leave, they do single and double A. So we may get a month and a half, 6 weeks later of the double A season. Right. So you're right. We don't know what's going to happen. It's wild that we're almost in February and there's still so much unknown. I was hoping we get past the unknown this year, but there's still going to be a bunch of it.
Oh yeah. Well, and I just knew like last year the projections were a nightmare, and they are. And look at all the minor leaguers that didn't play last year. Wander Franco, it's just right off the top, but all these minor leaguers, there's development happening at these alternate training camp sites. Yeah. But how much, we don't know. I mean, we get little blurbs, they get leaked out. Some teams hold that info closer to the vest than others. The Red Sox broadcast stuff. There's a good thread going on Twitter about that. Glenn Colton started, and he makes a good point. I mean, there's this quote unquote soft info that we need to know. And some of it, if you dig hard, you can find it. But you got to know what you're looking for too. I'm not a scout. Me watching the alternate training camp site videos from the Red Sox as the example that was cited. I don't know what the heck I'm looking at. I mean, sure.
And you don't know who they're facing. Like, you don't know how they're setting up those games, that they're doing a kind of a sim game or a real game. It's just, it's a really, really difficult to get information out of that stuff.
Right. And just me trying to video scout, watching this guy's batting practice swing. I'm not Jason Gray. I'm not Derek Carty. I don't have scout training. I'm relying on the word of others a lot. I mean, yeah, I can see some things. I watch a lot, and I watch a ton of baseball, but I'm never going to be able to have that level of precision that I'm like, oh man, I cracked the case here. I'm going to get 2 nuggets maybe. Unless
it's Jared Kalenic, and then I can promise you his swing looks sweet.
Oh yeah, and I can hear it from here. He just hit another homer. But.
And the other thing with this offseason is how free agency has been absolutely the slowest pace ever. Like, we thought it was bad last year, and it's nothing. I think it's like 78% of guys or something like that aren't signed yet. So we've had so many situations. We'll talk about closers in a second, especially in closers where, where guys sign literally determine jobs. I mean, most offensive guys that are good, we know they're going to play, but we've got someone like Nelson Cruz who's like literally waiting on whether there's going to be a DH in the NL because there's 15 more teams that want to sign him if there are, whereas there's so few teams in the AL that need a DH right now. His choices are limited. I mean, it's smart for him to wait, but it's just that the lack of guys signed, and there's going to be a lot of guys I think that aren't signed by the time the season starts too. I think there's going to be a lot of veterans that are looking for jobs and maybe relying on injuries or something. I think you have a lot of guys that they're just going to bring up young guys and not pay guys because there's a lot of teams that aren't spending the money right now.
Oh yeah, I mean, and there's teams not just not spending, they're shedding.
I mean, you look at Pittsburgh's a mess. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the Cubs are shedding. The Reds traded away their closer.
I'm not crying for the Cubs myself.
No, I'm. Well, that's just the thing, though. It's like, just the Ricketts are as wealthy as anybody in baseball, and they're shedding, and they profited from that huge World Series run and all these playoff teams. They built up around Wrigley, and now they're selling off, and it's just I feel bad for Cubs fans, but they've had a good run at least. And compare that to the Pirates. Poor Pirates. I think I've made this case before. I won't belabor the point. But they just traded away a guy that's making $2 million this upcoming year, and I've seen the case made on Twitter, and it might resonate a little bit. Jameson Taillon's had 2 Tommy John surgeries. They may just doubt his ability to make it by the time they're good, so they wanted to get while they could.
There was that article was going around today that was about Clevenger when he got his, just talking about how many guys struggle with that second Tommy John. So, yeah, I guess I can see that. But, I mean, it's clear. They got rid of Josh Bell. I mean, they got rid of whoever else. There was another pitcher. Yeah, Musgrove, too, to San Diego. Yeah, I love Joe. He's on my list to talk about tonight. But, I mean, they're clearly getting – I mean, look at the A's. Like, they're not signing anyone. Hendricks is never going to sign. Semien's not going to sign, I don't think. And then I saw a quote from them saying that Tommy La Stella is probably outside of their budget. I'm like, you got to be – like, if that's out of your budget, like, I think Stella's a good player, doesn't strike out, like a solid guy that should be in a major league lineup. But if you can't afford that, like, it's too bad because they got a good young core and they're just going to do nothing to bolster it.
No, that's right. And, it's just you can see by their behavior, too, whether it's laying off scouts, laying off front office people. It's not just the players. It's everything. It all leads up to this. We got a labor war coming up. I think it's pretty clear. And, there are real tangible losses for the owners. They've lost money. At least they've lost profit. They've lost income. I don't know if they're actually losing. It's a net loss. But they're not making what they did before. I get that. But it's all building up to a bigger battle. Yeah. I always side with the players on this. I'm going to again. That's my bias, so there it goes. But at any rate, you can see it in the behavior there. You can see it how some teams – I mean, the Orioles – Peter Angelos is in bad health. They've got a terrible TV deal. And I think they're thinking that, they're trying to think about succession planning here. What happens when the team passes through to his son? I mean, and that's one of the reasons they're trying to, kind of clear the books as much as they can for 2021. And to the point where Joe Sheehan was writing about this, that they're in their arbitration offers, the 1-year deals to people, they're trying to get players to defer money. Trey Mancini, who said no, and they're not going to press this because, I mean, they'd be a huge loser in the public eye with that, more than they could possibly be otherwise.
Yeah, the unsigning guys, I think the main thing it goes with, at least fantasy-wise, is a closer. It was funny. I looked at the RotoWire closer depth chart, which is a really good kind of initial source to who's closing, who are the backups. You guys have 6 guys listed with high job security out of 30 teams. Like, that is crazy. It's unbelievable.
That feels about right. Yeah.
It does. I think I argue maybe with 1 or 2 of them. I think I probably put Kirby Yates higher, but you could argue with a couple. You could argue with a couple of them. If Yates is healthy, I think he closes. But
that's still a huge if, though. I mean,
it is, and I'd probably argue that Kenley Jansen's got some job security. But you could argue 1 or 2 is my point. But maybe you get to 8 guys.
Right.
That puts 22 teams in situations where they are medium, and there's only 2 at medium. There's just a whole chunk at low job security, and there's still guys need to decide. Brad Hand signed today, and he goes up into high job security. He's already there in Washington, but the number of guys who are definitely getting saves at end of games for teams is lower than we've ever seen before. Drafting saves in January it's literally impossible right now.
Yeah, it is, and to the point where I was really having a hard time finding 2 guys in my DC to get saves. I got my first closer, and even that's a little scary. I got Ryan Presley, and then everyone's like, well, what if they sign Hand? What if they sign? Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Hand signing in Washington was big for Ryan Presley, I think, because I think it was Houston, Anaheim, or somewhere else. And I think Anaheim's big too, because Raisel Iglesias I really like, and he kind of moves in that high job security now that Hand signed somewhere else.
I think Edwin Diaz benefits, Presley benefits, and Iglesias, all 3 of those. Now, there are other guys out there. Colomé could still sign with the Astros or with the Mets or with the Angels. That's still possible. Hand was, because he's left-handed, though, made that even more likely that he could sign with one of those places. That relieves some pressure. But then again, it also kind of kills Tanner Rainey. It kind of kills Daniel Hudson. I mean, not that those were guys that I was high on necessarily, but that kind of ruins that. But I'm not high on Hand, by the way.
No, I mean, we'll talk about him too. If a velocity drop year over year is not a good thing there, but I think we'll get some clarity in when we draft kind of the bigger drafts in March. But there are going to be at least half the teams they're going to be pretty much up in the air or in committee or someone that has a really short leash. I don't know. As I look at drafts, I think that getting one stud and then kind of figuring out after that might be a pretty good plan. But I'm afraid a lot of people are going to do that.
Yeah, I think so too. I really think so too. What you think it's viable to go get 2 of them, and then just or none?
Yeah, I don't want to do none. I just think that getting saves is going to be something you have to do mid-season anyways. I'd like to get 1. I think I'd like to get 1 and then find guys with lower job securities that I think are good or I think are going to stick in the role a little bit and kind of speculate. It's going to take a lot of studying on the kind of the back half of closers to find 2 or 3 I like. But my goal is to find 2 or 3 to target of the back half guys and kind of eliminate others and just, rely on my research, rely on, what managers are saying, rely on what I like guys' skills and try and find 2 or 3 targets in that range.
Yeah, I think it's also, I think we're really going to realize too that bullpen usage has changed.
It is.
And it's permanently so.
And knowing which teams have already changed or which teams are still in the old school, I think will be very important.
And then we're still going to have to kind of fish in those changed ponds too, though. I mean, because you know what? 20 saves is still better than, 5,
Sure.
15 is better than 5. We'll take those, especially if they have other skills.
Even getting 8 or 9 from a guy the first 6 weeks before he loses his job or before they can do something is going to be important. I mean, you're going to have to you have to get some. It's funny. We talk about all this, and then you get Tony La Russa paired with Liam Hendricks as like the absolute dream of a guy that's going to use him in a traditional role in every way possible.
Is he your closer 1 now over Hader?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, I can see the argument for that.
Just a little bit of Hader not being great last year, and then them using him a little bit differently. I just think La Russa kind of invented the 9th inning, really stick with the guy with Eckersley. And there was some closers before that, but he really, it was 9th inning and boom, he was his role. And I think Hendricks is just really damn good too. I mean, his last couple of years are just off the charts good. And I think that he's my one.
Yeah. La Russa says 9th innings are for closers. Make a Barstool La Russa joke. Too soon. I don't know. But anyways.
So let's jump into some of the off-season moves from kind of a fantasy impact. Everybody knows where people signed, but let's talk about how these guys, how it impacts their fantasy role, how it impacts other guys' fantasy roles. But first, a note from our sponsor, Monkey Knife Fight. Now that your season-long fantasy basketball and fantasy hockey leagues have started, this is a great time to check out our friends at Monkey Knife Fight, the fastest-growing site in daily fantasy. The NHL and NBA are in full swing. The NFL playoffs are here. The time is now to take advantage of a 100% instant match up to $50 on your first deposit by using the promo code RotoWire. Visit monkeyknifefight.com and use the promo code ROTOWIRE today. So, Jeff, I think the biggest sign, or I guess the biggest trade of the offseason was Francisco Lindor going from the Indians to the Mets. They are the Indians for one more year, right? I had that right?
It is. It is.
I messed the Washington football team like twice on the football podcast, so I'm very careful about that now.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, like, I think Dolan wanted to call them the Tribe, and it's like,
how
really
did
getting
you just
that.
not get this at all? Like,
not the point. It's okay.
Obviously, Lindor is a huge name, and the Mets are spending money. Steve Cohen taking over that team is clearly going to invest in that team. Lindor only hit 2 at 58 last year, 8 home runs, 6 stolen bases. But this guy is 32-22 in 2019. Do you think the move from Cleveland to New York sounds like the park is a downgrade, but the lineup's an upgrade, especially with where the Indians are right now? Do you think that the trade kind of moves him at all dramatically up or down your ADP?
No, I don't think so. I'm old enough to remember when Progressive Field, aka Jacobs Field, was not a hitter's park. Things change like that. So I'm not even convinced that it was going to be that helpful for park for him to begin with. Gets a much better lineup, even though if you go, look at the Mets last year. That lineup was great last year. Yeah. Now they added McCann to upgrade at catcher. They added Lindor to upgrade at shortstop. Man, this is a really good lineup. Every position has got a plus player, and especially, this is a team that could use a DH. So, all the better if they get that. They can play Dom Smith at first and Alonso at DH if possible. But, his counting stats are going to be through the roof. He's going to score a ton of runs. That's for sure. He'll probably run a little bit less, but.
One of the few NL lineups where you look 1 through 8 and you it's pretty solid up and down. I mean, you got JD Davis, who I think we like, hitting 7th, and McCann 8th. If you look at roster resource, they're guessed there. But one of those few lineups that 1 through 8, there's not a big hole you see. There's not a spot you take a breath pretty easily.
Right. By the way, I am doing one thing. I am assuming that the DH will still be in the NL. I know there's been rumblings that it won't. My projections, especially looking at NL pitchers, for instance, are that they'll be still throwing the DHs and not pitchers. So, and I still think of it as 1 through 9. That's just the way I'm wired right now. I know that's kind of contrary to some of the rumblings out there, but again, it's not official. And
no, I think it's very much up in the air. And it's interesting because it matters for obviously guys' jobs in the NL, but it matters just mostly for pitchers. Like not facing the pitchers, big for those NL guys. And we're always like kind of, we're between two pitchers. Oh, I'll just take the NL guy. Right. And if there's a DH, like that just kind of goes away.
Yeah, and I've been hardwired for that for so long, but I just
me too.
And if I'm not that way right now. I'm doing my best to kind of assume that it's going to be a DH, but I might have to pivot on the fly on that one there. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you and everybody else is the good thing. I mean, I don't think there's nobody that really knows, and if they do know, they haven't revealed it yet either. So.
Right.
Big signing this week. George Springer finally signed in Toronto. Big deal. I think it was 6 years, $150 million. That lineup was fun already, and gets a lot better with Springer there. I'm a big Springer guy. He only hit 265 last year, but 14 home runs in 51 games. Had a nice drop in his strikeout rate down to 17%. Walk rate was down a little bit, but he's still an over 10% guy every year of his career. I think the batting average is going to bump back up. The BABIP was a little low last year. I think we can kind of throw away the stolen bases though. He's been single digits since 2015. He's been a single digit guy, but. I don't know. You put him on top of this lineup. The runs scored, and that's a stat that we usually don't talk about. I think it was actually an interesting tweet from our friend Rob Silver today. Like with all the advanced stats and metrics, I think everybody's so concerned about finding the best player and finding who does this well. But those runs and RBIs, are still 40% of the counting stats for our game that we're talking about, and those they have to factor in whether or not they're obviously team dependent. And you can't quantify them with barrel rate or whatever it may be, but they still count for us.
Yeah, they absolutely do, and he's going to score a ton of them. And he might actually, Toronto actually allows their players to run a little bit more. Now we'll see, where they're playing. We don't, and that's speaking of things that we don't know.
I think it's going to be Dunedin.
You think so, huh?
I do.
Yeah. Why can't
I'll give credit to Rob Silver on there too. Obviously, he lives in Canada, big Blue Jays fan. That's I think that's his guess also.
Yeah, I think the smart money's on not Toronto.
At least for 2-3, maybe like summerish. We may get Toronto open back up.
Yeah. So Dunedin, correct me if I'm wrong, does not have a roof, right?
Does not have a roof. We're going to have a lot of humidity and a lot of rain delays.
Yeah, a lot of rain delays. A lot.
There's a reason the Marlins put a roof on their new stadium.
Yeah. By the way, Florida State League is not a home run league at all.
I remember from last year we were talking when there was those rumblings that we're going to have half the games in Florida, half the game in Arizona, and everybody was just drafting offense in Arizona and drafting pitching in Florida. So yeah, the Florida spring training parks are not really big home run parks.
No, they're not. So that might, but then again, it's not major league hitters hitting in there either, though. So that could be part of it.
It looks like right center is really short. Otherwise, it's kind of normal dimensions.
Yeah. So
Whatever
we'll see about that. And for that matter, our knowledge of Buffalo is kind of limited too. I mean, we saw some games where there were some shootouts, but not every game was like that. First of all,
I'm pretty sure from watching those Buffalo games, there'd be a lot of offense if they put him back in there. There are a couple of home runs. I'm like, oh, that's a pop up to left, and it was like 13 rows deep off the scoreboard in left field. But Springer's ADP is 55 right now. I think it's going to move up a little bit, but you look at ADP and it's like there's some good names he's got to jump if he's really going to go up. So I don't know how much he's going to move.
Right.
If he sticks in the middle of the fourth round, that's a guy that I will be heavily targeting at that spot.
I'd agree. And it's not such a bad thing. Todd Zola and I were talking about this on Sirius XM today. Not such a bad thing to get an outfielder too early. I mean, they drop off a little bit more than you'd expect. It's not like one of those years.
You need 5 of them too.
This is also true. So yeah, and the other thing I want to ask you about though is who loses out? Who's going to miss? Who's losing the playing time with this signing?
I mean, it's got to be Rowdy Tellez. I always mess that up. Yeah, but
or Tellez. Actually,
I guess it depends. I mean, it mostly depends if Vlad can, with the weight loss, can go play third base. I mean, that's a big factor because if he can play third base, then Tellez can play first. I think Alejandro Kirk is going to be a minor leaguer, but it's good. They got a lot of guys they got like 4 guys for 3 spots there, and these guys are going to have to lose at bats.
Yeah, they are, and
it also depends where guys hit too. Like if it's me, I put Kevin Biggio hitting second just because of the OBP and the walks, and I want guys on base for Bichette and Vladdy and Gurriel and Teoscar, but someone's going to get squeezed out of the top of that lineup.
Yeah, I think Randall Grichuk's also at risk to lose some playing time here too. Yeah. If they do like a platoon with Tellez and Grichuk or something of that nature, because I think Teoscar is pretty stable. He might move down in the lineup though.
He might. I think that his year last year at least buys him the first 6 weeks of the season or something like that. And if it's really slumping, maybe we see something. But I think 2020 bought him a pretty good leash. Yeah.
Still, even with that great year, he still struck out 30% of the time. And
he's not a bargain anymore either. We liked him last year when he was getting drafted, but he's fully priced now.
Yeah, I paid 6th-round price for him in my Draft Champions League, and yeah, that was. And then right after that is when Springer signed, so that was kind of cool.
6th-round price is pretty good though. I mean, his ADP's end of the late 5th round, so you did all right there.
Yeah, I did all right. Again, that was
not like you jumped too early. Yeah. I still think I really like Teoscar. He still has the ball hard, but yeah, the strikeouts are a very real thing that puts his batting average at risk, especially at slumps. He could hit 185 for a month, and all of a sudden then the playing time rumblings start. But I don't know, that the top 6 of that lineup looks pretty sweet to start at least.
Yeah, it does. It does. I want Blue Jays. That's the thing is, like, give me lots of them. They're going to score a lot of runs.
And Blake Snell got traded out of the division. The Yankees, after Garrett Cole and when Severino comes back, who knows? I'm not scared of Boston pitching. They at least got a lot of bats, but I'm not as scared as they're pitching. Charlie Morton's out of the division now. Mm-hmm. I'm not really scared of the pitching there. I think the AL East is a good place to get a lot of offense.
Yeah, and I know we're going to get into that in a second here, but with the Yankees, they're not. They're still focusing on the CBT when they're trying to improve their team. They're not going for the big splashy signing. They're not going after Bauer. They're trading for Tyon. They're taking a chance on Corey Kluber for a year. I mean, they're doing like these half measures. They're going to have like 8 guys that can do it. They're one of those teams that's definitely going to. They're definitely one of those teams that's kind of split it all around. When you're talking about 6-man rotations, they seem like a prime candidate for that.
Yeah, they really do. When you talk Kluber, Tyon, Jordan Montgomery, Domingo Germán coming off the suspension, there's a lot of guys that didn't pitch very much last year.
Yeah, there are.
And you got Kluber and Tyon who didn't pitch at all last year. Kluber pitched an inning, but those are guys that didn't pitch at all in 2020.
Yeah, exactly.
Good
luck. I hope Corey Kluber pitches well
in the opening series. Yeah, it's just going to be
full stop. No way. I'm taking him right now. At least at the price he's going at. And they're happy that he was hitting 91. It's just kind of like, yeah, okay, that's not sustained. First of all, there might be more velocity there. I'm going to be a doubter when it comes to shoulder injuries, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's 45 innings over 2 years, a shoulder injury, moving to a park that's tough, a division that's got a lot of offense. I mean, his last full year was an ERA under 3, but that we're talking now 3 years ago in 2018. ADP is going to be on the rise in New York. People are going to like, looking for the wins, looking for, playing on the Yankees. But if it rises at all from where it is, I'm going to have a tough time being on Kluber.
Yeah, for sure.
Padres obviously made a huge splash. I think it was the same day or maybe back-to-back days, trading for both Blake Snell and Yu Darvish. Both guys at ADPs in the top 50. Snell's ADP is about 48. Yu Darvish is like end of the first round, early second round, kind of in that after the big three you mentioned, those guys that go right in there afterwards, people trying to get those pitchers at the turn. How do you feel about Darvish going to Petco? Obviously coming off the fantastic 2020 season. The back end of 2019 was really good. Seems like he figured out his command issues from early in 2019. How do you feel the price though? I mean, that is full price for Darvish.
It is full price. I'm a little wary only because of competition level. Obviously Petco's a great place to pitch. He's going to have a team that's trying behind him, and they should score a lot of runs for him. But he goes from the soft underbelly of the league, the Central divisions, exclusively, to more Coors Field starts, facing the Dodgers a lot more. Even San Francisco all of a sudden is now not a pitcher's park, or at least not an extreme pitcher's park. Now, it's a little tougher of a schedule. I mean, granted, pitching in Petco will kind of ameliorate that a little bit. Don't use big words if you can't pronounce them, Jeff, by the way. But at the same time, I think that I just think it's a little high priced. And this is part of one of my themes that I've been kind of pounding on this year, is just how much of a difference it was to pitch in the Central last year.
And like you said, exclusively in the Central. They pitched every single game within the division.
Right.
Or within the two divisions, I suppose.
Yeah. And just to kind of give you an idea, just the extreme nature of this here. And granted, my ranking has them like mid to late second round, so I'm not really discounting even that much. But last year, Darvish had a .96 whip.
Yep.
Think about that. His previous best was 1.10, and that was 2/3 of a good season in Chicago. And granted, it took a little bit to get to that point. But in his best year in Texas, 1.12, actually had a 1.07. So this is an order of magnitude better than he's ever done before. And it's not just him. Look at Ken Maeda, if you want to really see an extreme example of improved ratios there. But you go through this, player after pitcher after pitcher after pitcher in the Central has these huge ratio jumps. And that's not sustainable. It's just not.
Maeda, every time I look at a draft and he's in the third round, it just sticks out so crazy. I mean, he's a guy that you and I have talked about. We liked, we wanted the Dodgers to, keep starting him, and he kept kind of jerking him around back between the rotation and the bullpen. But I don't know, taking him in the 40s seems a bit much to me.
Yeah. What's more likely? A 31-year-old pitcher, 32-year-old pitcher is like gained velocity and turned into a different pitcher, or he faced weaker competition. I mean, he went from 1.07 to 0.75 whip. 0.75, Scott. This is just...
That's a bonkers. I mean, that's crazy. And I mean, you talk about guys with innings, too. Like, he's never thrown more. He threw 175 innings his first year with the Dodgers. Hasn't thrown over 153 since, 155.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy that I don't think you can project more than 150 innings for him,
of course,
even if he stays
some
healthy.
of that's the Dodgers monkeying around with him, though, too, contractually. And, that's another whole thing. But, I've got him, I got to put on my Scott Pianowski hat and say regress to what, obviously, and not just regress, but I've got him at 394, 110, which means I'm never getting him.
No, at 394, you're not anywhere near that price.
I'm just never going to get him. And but this is like, if he's your SP2 and late 2 or early 3, fine. But if he's your 1 or early 2, that's I don't know. I'm not there. You have to draft somebody, and you have to draft pitchers. So that's the kind of the vice we're stuck in here.
And I like the pitcher. I'm just not comfortable with the price. I think that so. I mean, right behind him is Blake Snell, and he's in San Diego now. 3.24 ERA last year. His FIP was 4.35. He had a big strand rate that helped him. He was like 89% strand rate guy. The home runs were concerning. He's 1.8 home runs per 9. A career high barrel rate against, a career high hard hit rate against. How do you feel about the shift from Snell to the AL East in Tampa Bay, moving to San Diego?
Boy, oh boy. I mean, you go to a great ballpark, theoretically a team that's going to take off the governor switch. you realize he not once pitched into the 7th inning last year. Not
It's
once.
why you look at his game log and it was never there.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's still he used it, and he definitely you see it if you watch the playoff games closely. He was doing some nibbling. There's a lot of that happening there. It may not have reflected in the walk rate, 18 walks over 50 innings, but I mean, I was staying away from Snell last year at the price he was going. I'll probably do the same. I do think I'm a little bit more optimistic, but it's not like we're saying, oh, thank God he got away from the Rays. They don't know what they're doing. No one says that. They might say that in the playoffs, but I mean, generally, they've gotten the most mileage possible from their guys more often than not.
But you look at it, you had 4 wins. You're like, oh, well, you can't figure out wins. But when you average 4.7 innings per start, and you can suddenly project wins. It's hard to get wins if you don't pitch 5 innings. I hate to tell you, unless they throw an opener in front of you, which they don't do with Snell. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do with him in terms of going deep in games and how much not going to deep in game maybe helped his ERA. That third time through the order, a lot of guys do struggle. And we don't know how Snell would have been that third time through the order. And, maybe his ERA was kept low because they got him out of games. I don't know.
Now, granted, I mean, he's done it before his Cy Young year. I mean, where he did go get those innings and get those wins and get those Ks. And that's the thing. You get the Ks that go with everything that goes with him, too. Just, he also have had a lot of arm troubles in the past.
He's thrown over 130 innings once.
Yeah. So, this is a bold take. I'm going to draft Kyle Hendricks and not draft Blake Snell. I mean, I'm not going to have to spend that price.
I'm not that surprised by that. So I don't know how bold it is because I know you, but in the general scheme, it's probably bold.
I do live in Hendrickstan. That is that's one of my homes. But we'll see. The ERA estimators hate Hendricks. There's a good thread by Alex Fast starting on this one here. Steamer's got Hendricks at 446.
Wow,
which is just insane.
Yeah,
I know it's not a human. It's not choosing to do this. Right. It's still insane.
He's never been over 3.5, or hasn't been over 3.5 since his first full year. So the last 5 years he's been 3.46 or under.
He's had 7 seasons, I think, and he's beaten FIP all but one of those seasons. Now, granted, that's not a projection. FIP is supposed to be a reflection of reality,
right?
But it's not.
But he's never been over 4 WHIP, and you're right, they have him at 4.46. Wow.
Yeah.
We talk about San Diego. You mentioned kind of some teams that we have to figure out who's going to play. I mean, they're a team that if there's no DH, they have a lot of guys that they're going to figure out. If they do have a DH, they still have a couple. I mean, they signed Jerkson Profar to be the kind of the utility guy. They started on a 3-year deal, so obviously they're going to play him some, giving him that kind of money. They traded for Victor Caratini to kind of be Yu Darvish's personal catcher, but probably get some at bats too. But that's a team that really crowded to start the year at least, and they use that stuff, figures stuff out. Guys get hurt, stuff happens. But, if Pham's healthy, he's probably going to play every day. We don't know how he is after the stabbing incident and all that. We don't really know how he is. It sounds like he's fine, but he tweets that he's fine, but who knows what that means. That's a team that's really crowded, and what they do with Ha-Seong Kim. Did I say that right? I'm close.
I think it's just Ha-Seong Kim.
Ha-Seong Kim, who they signed from the Korean League. I mean, they got a embarrassment of riches there. Then they have to figure out where guys play, and for fantasy purposes, at bats are going to be interesting there.
Yeah, that's one thing I messed up on. I took a stab at Jake Cronenworth. I got to make sure I don't use the word stab with Tommy Pham, but with Cronenworth, and he's kind of a super utility, especially if they don't have a DH. Even if they do, I mean, that might be a problem because I don't know if Profar had already signed when I drafted Cronenworth or not, but I mean, between Kim and Profar, that takes away second base from Cronenworth. I mean, they need a DH for sure. And even then, they still have Will Myers, who misses his share of time. Pham misses his share of time. I get it. Grisham's going to play every day, or pretty close to that. It's rapidly contracting opportunities to play, though.
And let's not forget, Will Myers was awesome last year.
Yes, he was. Rumor has it that you were invested in that.
I was. And there's a lot of people like, they'll just trade Will Myers. I'm like, Will Myers hit 15 home runs in 55 games last year and hit 288 and cut his strikeout rate down to back to the prior year. And I think that you look at his strikeout rates, and 2019 just sticks out as a huge outlier now. And, who knows if it comes back. But I think it's pretty safe to say that's the one year that was really different from the rest of his career. 15 home runs last year. I mean, kind of like we talked about Teoscar. I think his leash is pretty good right now to start the year.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, this is not a team that's looking to sell off at all. They're looking to add. Why would they trade him away to make room for somebody? No. I mean,
and in real baseball, depth is a great thing.
Yeah. It is. It is. And by the way, speaking of depth, we don't know what roster sizes are going to be either, for that matter, this year.
Another detail. Yeah, that's true.
Probably be 25, but yeah, I mean, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Some other guys I wanted to get to, but first a note from our other sponsor, BetMGM. Sports bettors know the magic happens when you turn a hunch into action and apply the right amount of expertise. That's why BetMGM has teamed with RotoWire to offer new BetMGM customers a free 6-month RotoWire subscription when they place their first bet. Register on the BetMGM app or website and use promo code ROTO, that's ROTO, to claim your free subscription. Once you make your first sports wager, you'll receive a season's length of RotoWire's unmatched sports insights. Find out why BetMGM is the king of sportsbooks by signing up and placing your first bet today. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, and New Jersey only. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado and Nevada. 1-800-GAMBLER in New Jersey and West Virginia. In Tennessee, call or text the red line at 800-889-9789. You or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help in Indiana, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Promotional offer not available in Nevada. Going back up to the top of the ADP, Jeff, we got DJ LeMahieu re-signed with the Yankees, got paid there. ADP on him is fully priced too. It's 30.5 right now, so kind of the 2-3 turn and a 15-teamer. Where do you fall on LeMahieu at the price right now?
I mean, now that he's back with the Yankees, it's hard not to buy in. I mean, clearly he hits well there. That short porch and right fits him like a glove. He likes to go the opposite way there, and that works out really well. Last year, you still got the discount. Not so much this year. This year you're paying full price, finally, or close to full price. Probably won't run a ton. Only 3 stolen bases last year. He's not going to hit 364 again, but he'll probably hit 300 again. Probably hit. I think I even got him for 320. He's clearly going to be among the batting average leaders. I think that's pretty safe to say. And yeah, his signing actually is one of the reasons why they're not signing Bauer, I think. It's because, again, they're worried about CBT, and they spent on the offense, not on the pitching.
And we talk about runs scored. He's played 195 games in 2 years with the Yankees. He has 150 runs scored.
That's insane.
Yeah, so that'll work. He's one of those guys that you need those runs and you need the batting average because he's not going to be a huge home run guy. I think that maybe low 20s is probably a pretty good ballpark, and 6 to 8 steals is probably pretty fair too. So you do need the batting average, but a category that's not easy to find. And he's a team build type guy. Like you have to build, needing some batting average there, and maybe you draft a power hitter a little bit later that need the average to concern. I think he fits. He's one of those guys that you want to fit with somebody else, but. You're gonna get batting average, runs, and RBIs is a pretty good combo there.
And 3 positions again too, first, second, third. I mean that's so nice to have.
And if we have COVID stuff still, obviously a lot of these players, who knows what the vaccine's looking like at the start of the year. We're gonna have guys that sit, gonna have guys that miss games, and getting 3 positions is really key. Yeah,
it's huge. And Todd tried to quantify that a little bit too in the past. It's worth a round, pretty much, to get that extra position, and especially 2.
Yeah, I mean, essentially buys you an extra bench spot because you just don't need the extra backup, whether it be a middle or corner. You can kind of get away with one of those, and you can grab a closer in waiting or grab another starter who is a spec play. And as the year goes on, that becomes important to not have to have those guys on the bench.
Right, and we're going through positions a little bit today, or at least the player pool. If you're using the NFBC's player qualification, 7 games to qualify at a position,
yep.
2/3 of the second basemen qualify elsewhere. 2/3.
That's nice.
That's crazy.
Yeah, usually you get. I do that list usually, and it's usually about, I'd probably say, a quarter to 1/3 at most. Usually when you have the 20 games, so that's a big jump.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about pitchers who, we're not going to throw innings. If I'm going to bet on a guy who's going to throw a lot of innings, I think Lance Lynn is way up that list for me. He was really good last year. 3.32 ERA, 84 innings. He's a guy that just is going to eat some innings. I think that's pretty certain. And his last start of the year, he had 9 earned runs. So the ERA was a lot lower than it was. That last start really hurt a lot of people the last week. There was a lot of people that lost ERA. He lost leagues in ERA because of that last start. But back-to-back really good years. 2019, he was 3.67 to 208 innings. So he's just an innings guy. And in a year where I think innings are going to be more at a premium than usual, he feels like a guy to me. ADP is 53, so he's fully priced. But how do you feel about the move to the White Sox?
He took pride in throwing a lot of innings. That was like a thing for him, too.
Yeah, there aren't that many guys like that, and he's definitely one of them.
Yeah. Obviously, he's going to a good team. I like seeing teams try to contend. The ballpark isn't going to be as good, as friendly as it was, as the new Texas ballpark was, at least in most circumstances. I know that when the roof is open, it might be plays a little bit differently down in Texas, but still, yeah, I mean, I like what I saw out of him 2 years running. I mean, the thing is, he's going to get you your Ks. He's going to be a guy that's not going to be babied. That's for sure.
Yeah, what I really like is he had those big K and walk gains in 2019, and he pretty much kept those in 2020. I know we're talking about a small sample, 84 innings, but the Ks came down a little bit, but they're still 26% K rate. He kept the walk improvement, which every once in a while you see those big gains in a couple of stats. You're like, what's going to happen the next year? The fact that he kept both of those is pretty promising to me.
It is. Yeah, and the thing is, it kind of gives them just the extra layer there. It gives, they have Keuchel already, another guy I think who's going to be a little extra valuable because, again, I mean, not that he's been an Iron Man, but he's because he doesn't throw as hard, I think he's less likely to be an injury risk. But you go Giolito, Lynn, Keuchel, and now you're getting all these innings. It buys them some time on Cease and Kopech and Lopez, I guess, or even Crochet. It depends on what they do with him. It buys them a little bit more time to have those guys like that.
Yeah, you look at something like I just pulled up Steamer as an example. They have 3 guys at 200 or more innings, and if I'm going to bet on guys that are 190 plus, I think Lance Lynn's probably one of the top 5 in there. If I'm just going innings pitched as a stat, I think.
Who
Lance
are the
Lynn's
others? I didn't see that.
The 3 guys that Steamer has over 200 innings are Bauer, DeGrom, and Garrett Cole, and then above 190 you got Bieber, Hendricks, Marquez, Lynn, Greinke, Alcantara, and Aaron Nola.
That makes sense. I can buy into that when they're Bauer. He's another one of those guys. It's a source of pride for him to throw as many innings as possible.
Hell, he wants to throw every 4th day.
I know it. Is anybody going to let him do that?
No one's going to let him do that. No one's going to pay him however many $100 million to let him throw every 4th day.
Right.
I think it'd be fascinating from a baseball fan fantasy perspective. But I just don't think the only way a team would let him do it if he did that, the 1 year deal stuff he was talking about for a while, maybe the team would do it then. But if you're going to invest multiple years in a guy, I just don't think there's any way you let him do it.
I'll say this. I mean, they're not spending any money, but the Reds are his perfect laboratory.
They are.
They let him do what he wanted. He let him do like all the video stuff. They hired Kyle Boddy. I mean, for crying out loud, they got all sorts of driveline people in there. I mean, that is the perfect place for him to apply his wares, except for the fact that they're not spending any money.
Do you have any guess or feel where you think he ends up?
Anaheim.
Wow, that was my guess too. You took it out of my mouth. That's I think it's where he ends up too.
Yeah. It's surprising that there's a shrinking number of possible locations right now.
I mean, Pujols in his last year of the deal, so they're going to shed that, albatross that they've been. It seems like it's always been like 4 or 5 years left on the deal, and it's finally done. But you paid Trout, you paid Rendon. I think it's time to try and win with those guys.
Yeah, for sure. And this is what they need. I mean, Jose Quintana was a nice little ad, but that's not moving the needle. It's a win.
No,
too.
It's not. Yeah. Josh Bell is a guy that got traded to the Nationals. We're talking about 2 guys for the Nationals here. We talked about Brad Hand earlier, but Josh Bell and Kyle Schwarber. Interesting guys because they were brutal last year. Josh Bell hit 226 in 57 games, 8 home runs, only 22 RBIs. Some of that obviously is Pittsburgh related. But he had a big strikeout jump. He was 26.5%, where he was 19.2% the year before. Walk rate dropped under 10% for the first time. He was great in 2019. He had 37 home runs, 116 RBIs. He was really, really good that year. How do you feel about Bell moving to Washington? And is it one of those guys, like there's a lot of the guys that, 20, 22 months, we can, maybe start to throw it away. You got to always factor it in some, but he feels like a guy to me that maybe it was just bad in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Teams that need a DH for 1,000 though, by the way.
Yeah. Big time.
Between he and Schwarber. I mean,
yeah. Both from a crowded standpoint, also from a get them off the defensive side of the field standpoint.
Exactly. Yeah. Take a look at just the uniform decline among all the Pirates hitters last year. It wasn't just Bell. Brian Reynolds had a horrible decline last year. Newman had a bad decline. Just their middle infield was just bad.
And they were so bad, or it was just like one of those things. Like you could just feel that the whole team was just like it was just slump all the time.
Yeah, and some of that was the opponents they were facing. I mean, we're talking about like the decline in central, all these central pitchers that had big years. Well, guess what? They're all facing the Pirates. I mean, that's part of it there. I mean, that's a lot of Bieber and Bauer and, Darvish and Corbin Burns and Woodruff all having these career years. Well, they were doing that on the backs of the Pirates a little bit there as part of it, but they all just, as a team, they just collectively tanked. It was really bad.
Key Brian Hayes just texted me and said he does not want to be part of this discussion.
Yeah, well, he was only there for a shorter period of time. The stench doesn't stick on him yet.
376 is still pretty crazy.
Oh, it's crazy. What's crazy is it took him to decided that, okay, we need 6 weeks at the alternate training camp to decide whether he's ready for the big leagues.
Yeah, right. There's so many studs in front of him, but
yeah, well, that's not blatant manipulation or anything. No.
Yeah, nobody would do that. Schwarber is a guy that I was wrong on last year. Loved him in drafts. I liked the kind of steps up he had taken in a lot of different stats. He was just flat out bad. He had 11 home runs, but he hit 188. The K rate had improved 3 straight years. Is one of those things I liked. It regressed last year. It's up to 29.5%. The BABIP was 219. He's career 267, so I think we'll see that jump back up a little bit. Still hit the ball hard, 47%. The barrel rate was lowest in 4 years, but still 11%. So he's the guy that hit the ball hard, but the number of strikeouts just kind of killed his average.
So we're talking about the Pirates' collective decline. How about the Cubs' collective decline, or the Brewers for that matter too?
True. The Brewers not hitting was the strangest thing of last year. That made everybody loved the Brewers to start last year, and they couldn't hit for a long time.
No. And Yelich went from a 20% K rate to a 30% K rate.
Yep.
You don't see that. You don't see that. You don't see that sort of massive sea change.
Especially with a guy that's that good too.
So here's what I want to propose to you a little bit.
Sure.
Just you got your conspiracy hat on there? Yeah, I think that is a conspiracy hat. No, it's a golf hat. Okay.
Golf hats.
But which club is that? I can't quite tell.
Pebble Beach.
Oh, nice. Very nice. But is it possible it wasn't just the Astros and the Yankees and the Red Sox that benefited from in-game video scouting?
There were Brewers rumors too. Like that, they were one of the teams that had the rumors, and that, as a team, when you collectively struggle that much, you have to wonder a little bit. It just, Yelich never had a K rate over 21% since his rookie year was the Marlins. We played 62 games, but like the next, 6 years, he was right at 20 or 19%. 31% is an impossible jump. It's wild to me.
It doesn't make any sense at all. Javi Baez, we've seen at least with him before that, he can have these horrible strikeout years, but he collapsed. And he was loud about complaining about not being able to check video between at-bats. And there's a difference between video scouting and cheating.
Of course.
The thing is, that those same rules are going to apply this year. The COVID protocols about not being able to go to the video room. Yep. They don't want people doing that. Until everybody's vaccinated, I guess I can see it. But, we're going to see a ton of strikeouts. Now, the thing is, some of that got masked. If you look at league-wide rate stats, you look at the, strikeouts actually technically went down last year, but that's because you took out all the pitchers. If you do it just on position player at-bats, strikeouts still went up. And it's a problem. It's hard to hit a baseball these days. Look at Devin Williams and his airbender, for crying out loud.
It's absurd. Yeah, and you look at James Karinchak in Cleveland, like the strikeout rates on some of these guys are they're unhittable. But Yelich had never hit under 280, and I know he's only 58 games, but he hit 205. That's. I don't think I have to go look, but I doubt Christian Yelich is at a 2-month 205 stretch at any point in his career.
Right, especially because his Marlins career, he was the hit for good average guy.
Right, and he didn't have fly balls to hit home runs, but he still hit the ball hard and hit 280. Even his rookie year, he hit 288.
He was a rich man's Nick Markakis.
There you go. I like that. But 205 is wild. Is he still a first rounder for you?
I don't know. I drafted 11th in this DC, and I had my chance at him. I took Freddie Freeman ahead of him, and knowing that I'm missing out on all those stolen bases because, 30% strikeout rate. That's, I don't understand. I don't get how you can ignore that. Is he gonna get? I don't think he's gonna ever get back to 20. I think he'll improve, but he'll improve to 25%.
Really? You think it's that bad?
How can you strike out that much and then wipe it all away? I just think it's not permanent maybe, but it's a changed hitter to me. I can't see him hitting 300 again.
At 11th, I wouldn't do it. There's enough guys there, but I think at the turn, if he were still there, I'd probably take the jump.
I'd think about it. And think about what I'm going to do with batting average for the rest of the draft, because at the very least, you have to think that you're putting it at somewhat of a risk at the batting average. You're taking a chance there.
I'm a little more confident that that 2020 was a weird outlier for him than you are.
Perhaps. Okay, so I'll ask you, and I'll ask the listening audience. What's his strikeout percent this up in 2021? And then what's his batting average?
I go 285 and 23%.
Okay, I'll take the pessimistic view on both of those. I've got him at 264, by the way. Is my projection.
I would definitely. I'd bet money on over 264.
$20.
$20. I'm in.
All right. I mean, I'm setting it at my level, which is, that's a sucker bet for me, but it's okay.
But so you think my 23 strikeout percent is low then? So you want the other side of that one then? So we kind of even it out.
Yeah.
All right.
I've got it at nearly 26%.
You have over 23% then. So we'll set it at my number. So we each set a number and unfair on each side. Perfect.
Okay.
I like it.
Yeah. This is what I usually do with the list, but I like that. You and I usually don't bet, but I know you're good for it.
We should. I probably am good for it. Yeah. We talked about closers a little bit. A guy you do like is your prior Reds closer, Raisel Iglesias, traded to the Angels. Raisel was really good last year. He was 2.74 ERA, but a career high K rate at 34.1%, a career low walk rate at 5.5%. I think he kind of the Reds were a weird team last year, especially early. I think he kind of stuck with the first year with a whip under 1. He was really, really good last year. He had a 31.9% K rate in 2019, so that was really good too. I think he's clearly the guy in Anaheim right now. He's a guy that I think I move up a little bit higher in the closer ranks than most people have him.
Yeah. This is weird coming from me because, I was kind of the big hater on this, but you've seen Clueless, right?
Of course. I'm
like Alicia Silverstone's character. I like Iglesias. What's going wrong with me here?
Old school Paul Rudd right there too.
Yeah.
Underrated movie that holds up well.
Yeah. My oldest daughter likes the movie, so I mean that's kind of crazy. We could share that, but
that's awesome. I like it.
Well, he's got job security. For one, he gets his Ks, and he cut out all the homers last year. Only 1 homer in the regular season. So I only said regular season, but he looks legit, and now he's going. Now, granted, Joe Madden will reinvent the closer job 2 or 3 times over the course of this season, so that's the risk that is involved with him. But I mean, I think he, especially now that Brad Hand's elsewhere, I'm not really worried about them signing Colomé. I think Mike Myers is pretty decent as a pitcher, but I'm not worried about anybody unseating him. I think he's one of the 8 or 6 solid closers.
I do too.
I want him.
Yeah, I mean, things go sideways, and they do with closers sometimes, but I think he's a guy that has the job to start and a pretty good leash, and you can't make that case for many guys.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think he's pretty darn good too, which is another bump up for him.
Yeah, it is. So, yep.
You sort of scoffed when I said Kirby Yates earlier. Is that just strictly an elbow injury? You are not binding on that yet?
I don't mean to scoff at you. I don't mean to harm you, emotional pain or anything like that. But
I was a little bit scarred, but I'll probably move past it pretty quick.
I couldn't put him in the very secure. I mean, until we see him pit. I mean, I know he's throwing bullpens now. Great. I'm happy for that. I always think that, surgery denied is surgery deferred in these instances a lot. I mean, I know it's just bone chips, but
no, I do too. I think that's something that I usually go with too.
Let me see some velocity ratings this spring before velocity reports before I jump in on him. I mean, he signed with the right team. Jordan Romano is not 100% either. He's got the finger issue. Dolis could be the guy, but it's not. He's stepping in a position where there's not an established closer. Giles is gone.
And Dolis is 33 and walked a ton of guys last year. I don't think he's really that concerned. I think he's a guy that we have to see it in spring training. But if he looks good, I think he's someone that has the role at least to start. He signed. They paid him the money. And he was probably the best relieving pitcher in baseball in 2019. So this is a guy, we're not talking about just someone that is coming in and we think he's going to be pretty good. He was the elite top guy in 2019.
Yeah. To me, he's just kind of got a JJ Putz feel to it there where he...
Oh, that's not a comp I want.
I know, but he was
You
the
might be
best
right,
reliever in baseball for 2 years, and then
it was.
Yeah, that's the sort of feel I got for it there. I mean, and he's such a late bloomer too.
And it's funny. You look at ADP, he's 246, but there's been 2 online championships this week, and he went 155 in those 2 drafts. So he's the days of getting him at a discount are gone.
Yeah, that's true. And that's the other reason why I'm just kind of like, okay, well, I mean, the thing is, we're all looking for closers. I mean, we're all like trying to find any sort of safe harbor there. He's anything but safe, and he's 34. I mean, it's not like he's got years to pitch on this. I mean, it seems like to me, it's like he needs to kind of get off to a great start. Let's put it that way.
If he throws 3 good innings in spring training, he's going in the 8th round.
Are you paying that price if he goes in the
Probably not the 8th round, but I might do the 10th round.
Yeah, which means you're not going to get him then.
Probably not. Yeah, I don't think I could. I think he's going to move. He's one of those guys that if he's throwing hard in those first 3 spring training games we go draft, I think he's going to be a fast mover up.
He could. I mean, I loved him. Going
I did too.
Last year.
Did too.
I got lucky that I missed him. Although I had him in a keeper in one spot, and that wasn't fun. But yeah, I didn't draft him in it. I made other copious mistakes instead.
Any like for Rafael Montero traded to the Mariners? It looks like they traded for him to close. He had 8 saves last year, 4.08 ERA. Had a pretty good velocity jump as a reliever those last couple years. He went from like a 92, 93 starter guy to a 95, 96 guy. ADP is kind of in the 205-ish range, so someone you can wait on a little bit, but I think he'll probably move up a little bit too as we see there's no closers. Do you like Montero at all?
Yeah, I'm in like with him.
Yeah, that's where I am too.
I got him in the XFL where we do like a stupid early auction and all that. Usually it's at First Pitch Arizona. And then he got traded after that. I'm still okay with it. I honestly, I think that a trade was necessary because of what Texas is doing, and that they were trying to find ways to, not have anything invested in like bullpen guys. So Seattle just changed their closers so often last year. That's my one concern, but I think that they got him to address that a little bit too.
I'm pretty sure the rogue drafter is still hoping for Hunter Strickland to take that role.
It's true. Is there any? There are no Japan games this year, obviously, but so
no.
Trying to get that first overall won't be an issue.
The screenshot is probably framed somewhere though. It's probably really nice.
Billboard style.
Last guy I want to talk about, you mentioned, we brought him up, we talked about the Padres earlier, Joe Mosgrove, a guy that both you and I have liked a lot in the past. Broke out a little bit last year, 3.86 ERA and 39, 2.2 innings, so missed some starts, didn't throw a lot of innings, but he had a huge strikeout bump last year. He changed his pitch mix. He stopped throwing the fastball as much. He upped his curveball about 10%. He had over 50% whiff rate on both the slider and the curveball. So I think he's a guy that the small sample is real. It was only 40 innings, but it looks like a guy that really changed how he mixes pitches up last year.
Yeah, and I mean the way he finished obviously is going to get everybody crazy. I mean, he had 29 strikeouts in his last 3 starts. He also had triceps inflammation last year too, and that's a little bit of a warning sign to me. I'd love to bring him up. I'd love to nominate him in an auction.
I like that too. Yeah.
Either get him, and I would start it like at a mid price. I wouldn't start him at $1. That way, I give myself a chance to get him. But if I'm in a room full of sharps that everybody loves him, okay, well, fine. Let people spend on him. But if I'm not, well, then I get a guy that I kind of like as a bargain. So I don't know. I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to be a bargain in most places. I think there's always going to be 2 people in every draft that love him. And
his ADP is 140 already, so he's already in the top 10 rounds. There's a tweet out there that I tweeted last year that says Joe Musgrove's still the worst. I should probably go delete that before he has a really good year, huh?
I have so many bad tweets. I should,
he gave up 4 runs in 1 inning to the Reds to start an outing. I think it was in September, and I was finally just so over him. I should probably go get rid of that one before Old Takes Exposed comes to get me.
I mean, there's a long list of people Old Takes Exposed is going to get to before they get to you, though.
That's probably true. Hopefully, it's funny because I just thought about that. I was one of those frustrated tweets that I probably shouldn't have made. But
you didn't tweet Adam as you said it. You didn't you just
no,
said his
God,
name.
Never,
you didn't go
never,
Adam,
never.
So it's fine.
Never. I would never do such a that. No. I can't stand when people do that.
Right.
And we kind of got a little bit long here. Obviously, we tend to do that. Anybody else off-season move-wise you want to talk about? I had Carlos Santana, James McCann kind of down here. Is there anybody else that off-season moves that is in your head that you think is worth mentioning at the moment?
Just what about today's trade? Tyon going to the Yankees. What's your thought on that?
I think it's a good risk for the Yankees. It's very little money for a guy with a lot of upside. I think there is risk in there. I mean, it's a second Tommy John thing. Who knows what's going to do? But it seems like they gave up, 4 decent prospects, but nobody high end. So I think it's a good risk for a team that needs an upside pitcher. They need someone that's going to take that step up and be the second guy behind Cole. And it feels like they're amassing guys that might take that step. They got him, they got Kluber, they got Jordan Montgomery coming back, Domingo Vaughn. So I think they're putting a bunch of guys in a bucket to try to figure out who's going to be that 2-3 guy. And they figure that the more depth they have, the more chance they have of kind of unearthing that guy. I
think that's right. He was so good in 2018, but that point was it was 2018.
Yeah, I loved him then too. I thought he was about to take that big step up, and they had the 3.2 ERA that year. He threw 191 innings that year. He threw a lot of innings that year. He was really good, and then just the injuries is it's brutal. It's tough. I'm really rooting for him. He's a second overall pick in 2010. I mean, he's 29 years old. It seemed I kind of looked him up. I thought he's probably still 25, 26. I wasn't even close. It was, but I hope it works out. I think it's a good risk though. That there's very little. They didn't lose a lot of money from it. They didn't lose any stud prospects. I think it made sense.
Kluber or Tyon? Who are you more likely to draft?
Probably Tyon. I just think the upside is a good amount more there, and the Tyon injuries like the Tommy John is I think once he's back. Although we don't with the second. I don't know. I just think there's a little more upside with Tyon than Kluber right now, especially age wise. And Kluber came out and threw 1 inning last year. I don't want to do it. I think I'd go Tyon. How about you?
Agreed. I'm in the same boat. I also want to know: are you getting an NRI to be the Pirates' 5th starter?
I am. I'm up to about. I could probably throw. I don't want to overestimate. I'd probably throw mid-70s right now, so I'm good.
Yeah, I was always the crafty lefty. Even at my peak, I don't think I broke 70.
You've got to step up already on me then.
Yeah, I am the Tom Bolton. What I aspire to be.
I have to go low 70s right now. I haven't played softball in a year due to COVID, so the arm is probably not in good shape as it should be.
Oh yeah, my shoulder is a mess. Actually, there's no way I can handle it.
Not get that fixed yet.
Do I want to get cut open during COVID? No, I don't think so. But
yeah, that's a good point. Lastly, I can't believe that LaFleur kicked that field goal.
Horrible. Both coaches today, Buffalo and Green Bay, they made a point of being aggressive on 4th down all year, and they get to the most important game and the most important sequence, and you get conservative.
I think coaches feel pressure in the playoffs too.
Yeah, they do. I mean, LaFleur though is hideous. I mean, there's barely 2 minutes left in the game. What are you thinking?
It's a Hall of Fame quarterback in an MVP season, needing 7 yards to have a chance to tie the game. They needed 2-point conversion. I get that, but not only that, you're giving the ball back to the greatest quarterback of all time. And they hadn't
stopped him. They had scored 31 points against your defense.
And Brady had thrown picks and made mistakes, but he wasn't going to throw a pick. He wasn't going to force anything in that spot.
Right.
And it was just I wanted Green Bay to win that game, but I was kind of glad they never got the ball back because it kind of deserved it at that point.
Yeah, it was a lesson. And LaFleur kind of owned it afterward, at least.
So did he? I didn't. I just saw all the quotes I saw were Rodgers talking about, I don't know if I'm coming back kind of stuff that took over the market. But LaFleur owned it?
I thought so. I got to dig up the actual quote, but I thought he said that he thought he made a mistake. I know Buffalo thought so. I mean, with their 2 field goals in plus territory. And keep in mind, it wasn't just that field goal. Remember in the first half, they kicked one from 2 yards even closer. Yeah.
And they had 3. I thought one was okay. I could have gone 50-50 on, but the other 2, I was like, you got to go for that. And not only that, you're playing the best quarterback in the league. You're playing the best offense that I've seen in many years. I know they weren't the number 1 scoring offense, but they're the best offense, and they clearly were not stopping them at any point. Right. You never win. You never win in those games with field goals.
Right. And we've seen this all playoffs. I mean, Vrabel was so hideous earlier.
Vrabel's was awful.
Yeah, and there were people defending that one. Tony Dungy defending that. Oh, I got to trust my defense. They're playing well today.
Yeah.
Okay.
But LaFleur, I didn't know what was happening. I saw the kicker come out, and I was like, maybe I looked at the score wrong. Yeah. Maybe they're down 9, and I just looked at it wrong, and I did the math, and I'm like, I can't believe they're taking Aaron Rodgers off the field. It was
it was so bad that even Troy Aikman criticized the move.
That's the point. If Aikman and Buck are obviously ripping you off the bat too, it wasn't like they came back from commercial and someone got in the air to say something. Right off the way, they're like, I can't believe you're taking the field goal, and I kind of robbed us too. Like that would have been a fun play as football fans. I had no rooting interest in that game, but
Right.
fourth down with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams against that defense, like, come on, give us what we want.
Right. Roger should have scrambled on that third down throw, by the way. And
You would have scored that play.
no, let's not get too silly.
No?
No.
You get to the 3 though, and then you go for it.
Right, exactly. It makes it a tougher decision, or maybe an easier decision to go for.
I saw the reverse angle. I think Rodgers scores. The guy right behind him might have tackled him maybe at the 2 or 3, but I think he scores.
I think he does too. And the point is, at least it's closer. Then it's less to go on that decision. But yeah,
there's a lot of games where you can go back. There's like 5 plays that Green Bay left on the field. He had Lazard wide open for a touchdown, just fully missed him. The pass to Adams always catches. They're gonna regret that game for a while. They should have won that game. They outgained them. They left a lot of points on the field.
Well, Brady throws 3 picks and he gets 6 points off of it. I mean,
so Brady, guy makes huge mistakes and doesn't pay for them. It's so frustrating.
You sound like you're bitter or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I just was hoping for a different team. I was hoping for. I've long got past the Montana's better than Brady thing. That's not a thing anymore. I fully get. He's going to 10 Super Bowls. I can't argue that anymore. But I don't know.
By the way, what was with Terry Bradshaw's fixation with 25 years when he said that Brady's the best quarterback in the last 25 years? Is it because of Montana? Is it himself?
25 years. So that takes us back to 1995. So yeah, Montana won all his before then. But I guess maybe he's thinking of Montana.
Who could he possibly be referring to though? I mean,
either himself or Montana, right?
Right, and no way.
I'm the biggest Montana fan there is, and I can't even start the argument.
No, you can't. Brady's the GOAT.
It's 10 Super Bowls. It's absurd. That number is something that I never thought any big quarterback would get. I mean, it doesn't even seem possible.
I mean, we all vividly remember Terry Bradshaw going elsewhere and going into a Super. Oh wait, no. Or Montana with the Chiefs going to the Super. Oh no. Okay, no, it's Brady.
Joe got close.
He did get close, and I wanted the Chiefs to get there.
Championship game. I wanted Niners Chiefs that year, and they both lost in the championship game. But
yeah, that was a fun year.
Anyway, I won't get too much into football deep, but I just had to go there. So,
sure,
thanks for listening to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Jeff, anything to add there? You're good?
I'm good.
It is great to be back. Happy to be talking baseball with Jeff. Obviously, we went long here, so obviously we both hated it fully. Thanks to everybody out there who was on Twitter and said they were really happy about us coming back to that. That meant a lot. Really enjoyed doing the podcast for everybody. We will be back at you next Sunday night. Jeff, you're on twice more this week.
Yep. Fred and I on Tuesday, we're going to do some dives on the Blue Jays and Reds in addition to like news and all that. And on Thursday, we got Ariel Cohen. We're going to talk ATC, talk a little Mets, talk who knows what else. But, we're going to continue the rotating co-host / guest for Thursday. So anybody who want me to host, let me know.
We got Clay and James on Wednesday and Clay and Todd on Friday. Is that right, or did I mess it up?
You got it right.
Nice. So thanks everyone for listening. If you could please rate or review the podcast, that'd be fantastic. Also helps people find us, which is great, especially in the preseason. We're doing a lot of draft talk. We look forward to doing a lot of draft talk up until the start of the season. Look forward to that. Hope everybody has a great week and take care.
Please like our video and subscribe to RotoWire. Then go to rotowire.com/pod for a free 10-day trial.